Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Marty Fahncke, founder and CEO of WBR, which we'll talk about all of that. And he's top rated speaker. He's a top rated podcast guest. And I'm really happy to have him on for his expertise and talk about business, talk about acquisitions. And I'm really happy to have him. So Marty, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate being here.
Yeah. Start off by talking about what you do and how you got started, and we'll dive right into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. What I do is I help companies grow through acquisition or their business when they're ready to sell. I got started completely by accident over 20 years ago. I had a business that I started with some buddies. We grew it quite successfully for about a year and a half. And then somebody came along and offered to buy the business from us and offered us $1.5 million. And we thought, that's all the money in the world. And so we sold the business. And that was my first taste of buying and selling small businesses. And since that time, I've bought and sold a number of businesses to the tune of dozens of them on my own, and then hundreds more as an advisor. And I've done about $500 million in transactions. And I'm here today to talk about really two things for business owners. So number one is how to double your business without having to sell more stuff. And number two, how to sell your business for the highest value when the time is right for you. However you want to approach the conversation, I'm all yours.
Yeah, which is really interesting because the double revenue strategy, and I wanted to ask you about that. You double the revenue without selling more stuff, and elaborate on the strategy and share some practical examples.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know a lot of people of your listeners are professionals, whether they're doctors, dentists, attorneys, et cetera. And so if you have a business that's doing, say, $2 million a year in revenue, and you have reasons you want to grow that business, whether it's to make it a bigger, more stable business, whether to make it more recession proof, or just because you want to grow, because we all know that if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So you want to grow your business and say, how can I double my business? Most business owners look at it and say, the only way to double my business is to sell more things, stuff, service, products, whatever it is your business is, right? You got to sell more stuff. You want to double your business, you got to sell twice as much stuff. Here's the problem. Selling twice as much stuff seems easy, but it's not. It's really difficult. If it was easy, any business would just do it. And quite frankly, it's pretty rare to be able to do that. And it's also really risky. Trying to sell more products and services or twice as much products and services than your business is doing now, what is it going to mean? It's going to mean you have to spend more money on marketing, you have to spend more money on in salespeople, employees, et cetera. And the reality is, the more money you spend on the marketing, oftentimes the less efficient it gets. There's an old saying, half the money I spend on marketing is wasted. The problem is I just don't know which half. When you scale rapidly or try to scale rapidly, the problem actually gets worse. So one of the ways that we utilize to double a business without having to sell more stuff is acquisitions. If you're doing $2 million a year right now, and you want to do $4 million a year next year, go and buy a business that is doing $2 million already. They already have proven systems. They have proven customers, proven revenue streams. If you do it right, it's a business that's 5, 7, 10, 12 years old. So they're really strong and stable. And you can buy that business, merge it with your existing business, and poof, you've doubled your business overnight. Now, first thing people ask me is, well, that's a great idea, Marty, but I don't have $2 million extra laying around. The really cool thing is that you can do that. You can acquire a business that could double or triple your current business for very little money out of pocket. In general terms, we can usually do it for about 10% of the acquisition cost. So if it was $2 million, you might be able to acquire that for 200,000. And in some cases, especially in the United States, there are some programs that will allow you to do that for absolutely nothing. You can go out and expand your business, double your business, and not pay one penny out of pocket, eliminate all the risk, eliminate all the drama, and double your business through acquisitions. And so that's the simplest way to do it. It's fun. It's effective. We just closed a deal a couple of weeks ago. It was a marketing agency. They were doing, let's say they were doing about $1 million a year. They came to me, wanted to grow. We found them a business. We acquired it, helped them acquire it. It was a $2 million a year business. Now it's a $3 million a year business. They've tripled their revenues. They've quadrupled their profits. And the entire out-of-pocket cost was $17,000. That's it. $17,000. They recouped that in the first 2 weeks based on the profit margins of the new business. And now they're doing really well. So it's So it's a strategy that we have used many times that we would recommend people look at. And people think about mergers or acquiring businesses, the big Wall Street thing, right? Oh, that's for banks and airliners and things like that. It doesn't have to be. It can be for any type of business, from dentist office to dry cleaners can do acquisitions to grow their business for increasing profits and lower risk.
Yeah, really interesting. And while you were talking, I was thinking, oh, maybe, double your revenue by just charging more for your services, make them more valuable. And that way you're charging where actually you're doing a little bit, but you're actually getting the bulk, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs are doing. Listening to, they're offering like coaching packages and different services. But that's interesting, this M&A strategy, which is actually because you're using leverage as well as you're getting as well as the business multiple as well. So you're hitting almost three with just one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doubling your revenues by charging twice as much price. That's interesting. And there are some businesses that need to do that. I work with a ton of businesses every day, and I look at some and I'm like, man, you need to raise your prices. But the reality is, if you do double your price, you're going to lose some customers. So it's not going to be easy to double your price and not lose a bunch of business and have to go out and replace that business. But if you just acquire an entire another set of customers, they're already paying that money and you can double your business. So
Yeah. And that's what Google and Facebook and Facebook, the quintessential, they bought Instagram and WhatsApp and and then like Google and all these companies are buy these small startups that have what they need. So one thing
well,
is
you
question is,
touch on one other benefit too that I'll mention, and that is not only by buying another business that's in your sector do you gain their revenue and you gain their profits, you also eliminate them as a competitor. If you own your competitor, are your margins going to be better? You're able to save money on marketing costs, save money on sales costs because you're not competing with them anymore. You now own them.
yeah. The other question is, where do you go to do your due diligence? For example, real estate, you go to the HAR or Zillow kind of, you can find out the valuation, property tax, you can see what the fair rents are. How do you do that for businesses?
There are a lot of resources out there for businesses that can give you some general information, but the reality is there is no Zillow for businesses. There is no single one-stop shop that kind of, oh, how much is this? What are the comps and what is the value of this business? Because business valuations are substantially different than real estate valuations. Real estate is you have a place and it's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, and it's this many square feet, and you can find other ones just like it and create a comp. And there's generally, because houses tend to be similar in size, scope, and nature in a certain geographic area, it's very easy to do comps. With businesses, it's very unique. Every business is unique, and there's different ways of valuing it. So some businesses are asset-based values, others are done on their profit. There's SDE, which is seller's discretionary earnings. There's EBITDA, which is earnings before interest and tax depreciation and amortization. There's all sorts of acronyms, but there's about 100 different ways to value any given business. And so you really should have a professional working with you to use the right ways to evaluate the business and understand exactly whether it's a good deal or not a good deal, and whether it's a good fit or not a good fit for what you're trying to accomplish. So I definitely recommend you talk to a professional advisor, an acquisitions advisor. And by the way, I do not recommend you talk to a business broker. Business brokers generally tend to be less, how do I put it? So they tend to kill deals more than they make deals happen. And so I would look for a professional acquisitions advisor versus a business broker, and they can help advise you on evaluation of a business.
In your company, how does it help entrepreneurs during this process? Are you a professional acquisitions advisor, or how do you fit this?
We are advisors, so we work with companies to advise and consult. Whether it's on the growth side, we can help them with a strategic direction, understanding how to apply this type of concept to their executing it, becoming their deal team, bringing the deals in, and all the way through to closing the transaction. And then on the other side, we work with our customers to help them grow their business so that they can eventually sell it for the maximum amount of money. And our ideal customer is somebody who is looking at selling their business in the next 2 to 3 years, and they want to position their business for absolute maximum value when they're ready to sell it. And we start to work with them to coach and advise them through that process to make it as smooth as possible a couple of years from now. Now, we can work with people who are looking to sell their business immediately, but our ideal client is forward thinking and looking to make a transition in the next couple of years and understands that this is a process that takes some time and some energy to really maximize. And so we advise and consult through that process.
Yeah. The other question I have is, for owners that are looking, how does an owner know when to sell or when to get out, and also, as well as some common pitfalls when they're going through this process?
Well, that's a great question. And so there's owners who have the option of getting out, and then there's owners who don't have the option of getting out. They're forced out. And unfortunately, a lot of owners are in fact forced out. So we see things like disease, divorce. Actually, we call it the four D's and a B, right? So we got to put disease, divorce, debt, disagreements, which is partnership disagreements. And then the B is burnout. And so unfortunately, a lot of business owners, when they decide it's time to exit their business, they don't decide, circumstances decide for them. They get an illness that causes them to not be able to operate the business, a divorce happens, things like that. The unfortunate thing is that most of the time when that happens, the owner is not prepared. The business is not prepared, let me say, to be sold. And so one of the things we always recommend is you should always have your business ready to sell, even if you never plan to sell it, because you never know what might happen to come along and force you to sell it. And we've seen time and time again where a business owner contacts us, says, "Hey, I need to sell my business." And we say, "Okay, you've got this circumstance, you've got to sell it right away. Let's look at what you've done to prepare it for sale." And they've done nothing to prepare it for sale. And they wind up getting a fraction of what it could have been worth had they had it prepared. Now, for ones that aren't forced into it, who are looking to be strategic in their thinking, you want to start looking at it when whether it's retirement is the number one thing that we see, right? People want to retire. They're going to enjoy the fruits of their labor. That's great. We start to look, when we're working with those clients, we start to look at, is selling the business to an employee or a group of employees. Does that make sense? Maybe a family member, you're going to pass it down to a family member, sell it to a trusted third party. A lot of times it's a partnership. You're going to do a partnership buyout. We start to look at what all those options are. And of course, the further ahead you plan for those things, the better. And the other thing that we see, like I talked about, was burnout, which sometimes is tied to the retirement thing, and not always. Sometimes, even if you're way too young to think about retirement, but you might be getting burned out in your business. Maybe you've been doing it 5, 7, 10 years, and you're looking for something new. That's the other thing that people contact and say, "Look, I've got this business. It's a great business. I love it. But I get up in the morning and I dread going to work. And I dread doing this day in, day out. I've been doing it for all these years. I really want to do something fresh. I've got this great idea that I want to go pursue, or this great opportunity." And so then they decide they want to sell their business. And that's another reason, is burnout or other opportunities is a very common reason to sell and to be thinking about exiting.
And how do owners plan and prepare? So, for example, just like unforeseen events, 2008 or COVID, like they're looking to get out, and then we have these like calamities where they can't get out. And then, so what happens then?
And that's why it's important to have your business in a position ready to sell at all times. Like I said, whether you want to sell it or not, if you have it ready to sell, you're always ready for those emergencies. So what are some of the ways of doing that? So the first thing we talk about is always, we talk about the financials, good, clean financials. Many small businesses, and especially professional businesses, it's shocking how many medical offices, dental offices, attorneys, et cetera, they're really good at their profession, but they're really not that great at running a business. And the financials is usually where we see that. So their financials might be a mess. They might be inaccurate. They might be not current or up to date. They aren't managing the business really strongly. And first thing you want to do is make sure you're on top of your financials. Have a bookkeeper, have an accountant, and stay on top of your financials, stay on top of your taxes. A shocking number of business owners just aren't there. And it's interesting because if you're running your business, even if you never want to sell it, but if you're running a business and you don't know your numbers, you're not running your business as well as you should be. So you need your numbers to be right. You need them to be accurate, and you need to understand what your numbers are so that you're managing your business properly. The next thing we look at is an operating system. Now, when I talk about an operating system, it's not software specifically. A good friend of mine likens it to, if you go to buy a McDonald's, let's say you decide, all right, I'm going to put my $3 million down and plunk it down to buy a McDonald's franchise. When you become a McDonald's franchise owner, they give you this playbook that's this complete comprehensive guide. It's everything, exactly how your parking lot has to be, your signage has to be, how to hire employees, what the uniforms, how to cook the food, how to take the order. Every single step of every single process is documented and trainable. That is an operating system. Your business should be running the same way. If you don't have an operating system that every decision has already been documented and laid out in a standard operating procedure, then you have a business that's going to be less profitable. It's going to be less operationally strong. And it probably requires you as the business owner to be way more involved than you need to be. So you want a business that has an operating system. There's a couple of different kinds of operating systems out there, business operating systems that we recommend. There's the entrepreneurial operating system that Wickman has developed. There's the scaling up operating system from Vern Harnish. And then there's a newer one that's taken both of those and mashed some of the best practices together called the scalable operating system, which came out from Ryan Dice and Roland Frazier about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I always suggest that rather than going and investing a ton of money into all of that, just go buy the books. Go buy the book Scaling Up from Vern Harnish. Go buy Traction, Rocket Fuel, a couple books for $20 each. You can read 3 or 4 books, figure out what appeals to you best, which operating system resonates with you, and then implement that operating system in your business. It will make your business so much easier for you to operate, pleasant to run, more efficient, more profitable. And then when you're ready to sell it, even if it's in an emergency, it'll be a much easier business to sell. And then tied to that, the third thing is you got to remove yourself from the business. If the business wraps around you, and if you step out of the business and the business collapses, that's not a business that's sellable. Business needs to be able to operate without you. So if you're a professional practitioner and you're a solo practitioner, that's a really tough business to actually have somebody else buy, because they need you to take care of those patients and they need you to take care of those clients. So you want to build a practice or a business that has other sources of being able to deliver the services and products that you provide without you having to be the sole source of fulfillment and revenue generation. Otherwise, that's a really tough business to justify selling. So you want to work your way out of a job as soon as possible. And then even if you don't sell it, guess what? You're going to be working half as much and making 3 times as much money if you do all those steps. So we always recommend you do these steps regardless of whether you plan to sell.
Yeah, really interesting. And we talked about, I know that people listening to this, they're, very interested in talk about reducing owner dependency, which they can go to your socials and reach out to you. This, while you were talking, it really reminded me of just Wall Street versus Main Street. And also like when you invest in just, good companies like Apple or Amazon or these companies, acquisitions are often associated with these big, but put it in perspective, how small, medium-sized owners, where they fit into this, and end it with how can people find you and reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, yeah, you do. When you hear the word acquisitions, you do tend to think of the big brand names and airlines and banks and things like that. But the reality is there are thousands and thousands of small and medium business size acquisitions happening every single day around the world. We do business all around the world, by the way, not just the United States. About 60% of our businesses that we work, our clients are actually outside the United States. So we do business in Canada, UK, Mexico, Australia, the Middle East, Netherlands, you name it. There are transactions happening all over the place. And so some of them are small micro businesses that might be just merging, and others are a couple million here, a couple million there, and you put those two together, and then you've got $3 or $4 million business. You got a lot of these are happening. And it happens quietly, but you might notice a dental practice down the road changes the name or something like that. You might notice a car wash all of a sudden changes and they get a big spruce up and they got a new name and they probably got remodeled. Guess what? Somebody probably bought that car wash and remodeled it and improved it. There are acquisitions happening across the board in every single industry. There's somebody who's interested in buying your business or they're interested in selling their business to you. In every category. It doesn't matter where you are in the world or what size your business is. There's somebody out there interested in doing an acquisition with you if you're interested as well. It's way bigger than you think. It's just hidden beneath the surface. People don't think about it.
Yeah, really interesting. And especially in healthcare, like I know a lot of private equity firms, they do this on a large scale. And there's pros and cons to that. And yeah, just this idea of mergers and acquisitions, really interesting. And how can people find you and follow you and reach out to you and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my company's called Westbound Road. So our website is westboundroad.com and easy to be found there. I'm also really active on LinkedIn. If you just look for my name, Marty Fahncke, I'm the only Marty Fahncke in the world. So if you stumble across me, that's me. It makes it hard to hide too. So I have to make sure I do a great job for everyone because I can't hide if somebody's unhappy with me. And I do share a lot of content on LinkedIn and on YouTube, a lot of educational content about mergers, acquisitions, and for small and professional businesses. I do try to help business owners really understand the power of all of this and how to sort through it all. So follow me on YouTube, follow me on LinkedIn, and connect with me on my website at westboundroad.com.
I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed talking with, it just gave me so many ideas. And for all the audience, be sure to follow Marty's socials and reach out to him if you're interested in M&A or selling your practice. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It was a great time.